I'm in favor and okay with interracial marriage. I want to give maybe a more controversial opinion. I can't believe this is a controversial opinion, but I have to give it. So, you know, they're having the big soccer event in Qatar. They're having, you know, the big FIFA event 2022 in Qatar. And Qatar has regulations on homosexuality. In Qatar, it is illegal to be a homosexual with punishment of a prison sentence up to 3 years, tons of fines, and if you're a Muslim, technically by the books, they can kill you. Death sentence. That has never happened. They have never actually followed through on that, but they have put people in prison for homosexuality. They have used homosexuality to racketeer people. Basically, you know, hey, I'm going to throw you in prison unless you give me money. They did it to Instagram stars that visit the country that were gay. And they've done it to other tourists in the country that were gay before. And of course, they've done it to their own citizens. And so a lot of people, as all of this business is flowing over to Qatar because of the event, as all the people flow to Qatar and it's helping the tourism industry, and, you know, they're trying to show off their country to the world and say, hey, everybody, Qatar is a leading power because, you know, hosting one of these events is really good for a country's soft power. They can turn to the world and show themselves to be influential, show business investors that, hey, we're a big country, we're a reliable country, we can host events like this, we're a good partner to work with. It's, you know, show themselves off, increase their soft power around the world, increase their economic potential is the idea. But many activists have a problem with the treatment of LGBTQ plus people. It's not just this. We could talk about freedom of expression. We could talk about freedom of the press. We could talk about how the government deals with opposition and how it has cracked down on protests, police brutality. Like, there's a million different issues we could talk about. But the one that seems to be getting the most attention, maybe because of the culture war, or maybe it's because you know, it's a lot of people care about LGBTQ plus issues now. Who knows? But the one that's getting the most attention at the moment seems to be the treatment of LGBTQ plus people in Qatar. And there was a protest proposed by some football stars. They were going to be, you know what, to support the queer people, we're going to have this armband. It's going to be very, you know, very slight. It's not going to interrupt play whatsoever. We're going to have this armband that has a rainbow on it that says one love. So, you know, we're all human beings, we all can love each other. Then those football stars, okay, these heroes that were coming to, you know, show the world they stand up for the LGBTQ plus community, they were then threatened with fines and penalties and immediately back down. Now, I don't want to be too opinionated here, but if you're not willing to go through with it, why did you make the statement in the first place? I mean, they know homosexuality is illegal in Qatar. They know that homosexuality is not smiled upon in the country. They know, by the government at least, and most people, sadly. They know that the government has been very, very comfortable with suppressing protests in the past. If it almost feels like they made the statement without properly thinking that, like, oh snap, we might get some pushback, and then immediately, once they got any pushback, they immediately cave. We're gonna watch a little segment on the story, and then I'm gonna talk about a tweet that has gotten a lot of attention, that a lot of people seem to be pretty happy with, that honestly is pretty stupid. Let's listen to what she has to say. Let's do the segment first.
Underway, it's what's happening off the pitch that's making headlines. The captains of several European teams were planning on playing with armbands supporting diversity and inclusion in a gesture seen as a rebuke to Qatar's human rights record. But FIFA wouldn't have it. The governing body threatened players with on-field punishment, a risk they knew would be too great for the athletes to take.
England, Wales and Germany were 3 of the 7 European national teams who wanted to set an example for tolerance and inclusion with a rainbow-themed armband and the statement One Love. FIFA saw things differently. While not expressly banning the armbands, FIFA said referees would sanction players who wore them with a yellow card.
FIFA today banned a statement in favor of diversity and human rights. These are values to which it commits itself in its own statutes. This is more than frustrating from our point of view.
And that's the thing, the whole time this has been going on, FIFA has been like, no, we care about human rights, we care about all this stuff, we care about queer people. Queer people are totally welcome here. Okay, then can I wear this armband? No, that's illegal, banned, you will be fined. Like, okay, yeah, sure, buddy.
FIFA got their way, and the evidence was on the arm of England captain Harry Kane. It appears that no European nation wants to risk a yellow card to make a political statement.
And for more on this, we can bring in Mustafa Qadri. He's a specialist in human rights and labor rights. Welcome to the day. Mr. Qadri, first it was supposed to be a rainbow armband. Then the teams bowed to pressure and decided on a One Love armband for diversity and inclusion. Now, I think they've settled on one reading no discrimination. Why?
They've caved so many times. Oh my God. Are we sure that this wasn't just the French team and no one else? How many times they've surrendered to the opposition, the slightest amount of pushback? Look, if you want to make a stand, you make a stand, right? If you want to represent something, you have to represent something. You can't do these kind of flip-floppy, oh yes, I'm gonna stand with the queer community. Oh, it might be detrimental to my career in any fashion. Goodbye. Immediately. They did it once, they did it a second time, and now they're on the third armband. That is the most bland message you could possibly imagine. It doesn't even directly have anything to do with LGBTQ plus people anymore. Just a statement, no discrimination. Ah, wow, good job. Great. Fantastic. Yeah, you're a real hero. And look, I'm sorry, this is cowardly. If you're going to say you're going to make a stand because you care, they have shown very clearly that they care much more about their money and they care much more about their advancement in their career by participating in this event and not getting a yellow card and their performance in the game. They care much more about that than standing for this issue. Now, I'm not saying that they have to care about this issue. I think it would be a good thing. I think it would be a beneficial thing. But the more they water it down, the more pathetic it seems. At this point, just don't even wear an armband because you've been pushed around and made Qatar's bitch so much. Wearing an armband is pointless at this point because the entire meaning of it has been washed away. It has been washed away. And you want to know what the world walks away from the statement seeing? Qatar won the fight against these footballers to protest for LGBTQ plus people. The queer people in Qatar are going to look at this and say, oh, the international queer community and our supposed quote-unquote allies, immediately when it threatens their bottom dollar, they cave and they won't represent us. Not only will they cave once, they'll cave twice, and they'll cave as many times as possible, as long as it means they get to make money. That's what the queer community in Qatar is going to view the situation as, and that has to feel terrible for them. Where for a moment you're like, wow, are people actually paying attention? And then immediately they cave once they get the slightest amount of pushback. Migrants are dying, but let's make it about LGBT. Got it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that there's one political issue. The whole world should only care about migrants and nothing else. Thank you very much, chatter. You're totally not a window-licking knuckle-dragger, undeserving of attention. Thank you. Thank you for distracting me. Jesus Christ. Anyway, as I was saying, this to me is cowardly. Either you take a stand and you stand by your values or not. And I feel like I'm one of the few people who can speak on this, okay? I support Ukraine. I think that Ukraine should continue to struggle. I agree with the majority of Ukrainians and I think we should support them. I put my money on my mouth and I went to Ukraine and got bombed because I believed in this stuff. Not only did I want to record it, but because I believed in it very fundamentally. Very fundamentally. Could you imagine that if once I met the first bump in the road, after declaring to the world I was going to Ukraine and getting all the, oh, look at Dylan, the good boy points, whatever that possibly came with that. Not the reason I did it, but that could come with something like that. If immediately at the first road bump I said, never mind, I heard it's going to be hard to be in Ukraine. I heard it might be kind of cold. Or I heard there might be internet problems. No, I heard that there's actually a war going on. Never mind. I would look like a coward. I look like a coward who just wanted positive attention and wanted people to think I was a good person. And I didn't actually care about the issue. I cared about the attention I could get by using the issue as a crutch to get good boy points. Which is what ended up happening here. They caved at the first sign of adversity. And it's sad. It's pathetic. Don't say you're an ally who's going to be willing to take a stand. And then once, there's any consequences for taking a stand, you don't take a stand. Taking a stand is only brave and stunning, Yas Queen, when there's actual risks that come with it. Like, if I was to release a statement tomorrow, it wouldn't be brave and stunning for me to say, I'm in favor and okay with interracial marriage. That's not brave and stunning because there's no consequences that come with it. But if I was to say that during the 1950s and I was to stick by it, then that's a different thing. That's a different thing. This is something that came with consequences and they immediately cave. But I've seen some people trying to defend this. Here's one example I will bring up. This guy right here was responding to an instance where somebody tried to walk into the event with rainbow over a football. You know, rainbow being the LGBTQ plus symbol. I don't know if this is an inherently LGBTQ plus shirt. You know, rainbows can just be rainbows. But he tries to walk into the event. Don't go into the quote tweets. By God, don't go into the quote tweets. Don't go into the replies. By God, don't go into the replies. Jesus Christ. They are bad. But let me just highlight one response. One response from this man right here. Actually, I don't know if he's a person of note. Is he a person of note? Never mind. Who cares? Either way, this man right here responds, and this gets a ton of love. Over 680,000 likes. As a Qatari, I'm proud of what happened. Saying he's proud that he was refused for wearing a rainbow shirt. I don't know when will the Westerners realize that their values aren't universal. There are other cultures with different values that should be equally respected. Let's not forget that the West is not the spokesperson for humanity. Okay. So, a lot of people really connected with this message of like, yes, I am also proud that those homos, you know, they don't get to wear their rainbows. That's bad. It's bad when the homos are you know, being gay in public life. That's homos back in the closet. It's, you know, it's their culture that they don't like the homos. That's perfectly fine. It's fine to be homophobic. Seems to be the reception that this message has got. It's fine to be homophobic as long as it's another culture. Where does this argument meet its logical conclusion? You're fine to do anything as long as you can protect it under the label of culture, no matter how harmful or wrong it is. It is bad to be homophobic. It has a negative impact on queer people and benefits society not at all. It is discriminatory and it is bigoted. It is wrong. It is a bad thing. It doesn't matter what culture it is, it's bad. I couldn't just use cultural... Could you imagine during the 1950s, somebody comes up to me and says, Dylan, what do you think of segregation, Dylan? And I was like, oh, well, sit down over there. Sit down for a moment, bucko. See, that's my American culture. In American culture, you know, due to my Judeo-Christian values, you know, the blue birds stay with the blue birds, the red birds stay with the red birds. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. That's just part of my culture that I think the races should be separate. I think black people stay with black people and white people stay with white people. That's what I believe. I don't know what you believe, but that's part of my culture. It's just what it is. That would be a terrible defense. It'd be a terrible defense. It's basically you can't make up a defense for your homophobia, or in that instance, I couldn't make up a defense for my racism to say why it's actually okay to be racist, or in this instance, it's actually okay to be homophobic. So instead, I use my culture as a shield to kind of play the victim. Like, oh, how dare you attack my Qatari culture? Nobody's saying anything about Qatari music. Nobody's saying anything about Qatari food. Nobody's saying anything about Qatari linguistics or anything around that or Qatari history. People are just saying that you should treat queer people with respect. Nobody's like burning the Qatari flag or saying that Qatar needs to go to hell and die and everybody in Qatar sucks because of their culture. All they're saying is that homophobia is bad, and you cannot use the defense of cultural relativism, which has disastrous, if you bring it to its logical conclusion, could have disastrous consequences. You cannot do that. Like, could you imagine if somebody was just like, oh, why are we bigoted towards Roma people? Because Roma people aren't part of our culture, and we don't want them in our country, so we're deporting them all. We're like, oh, that is what it is. Oh, in Myanmar, when the government said, you know what, the Rohingya Muslims are not part of our country. They're not part of our culture. You know, they're not part of our Buddhist culture. So we're going to make sure that all these people who are, you know, being really disrespectful to our culture, and you can try to judge us for, you know, doing these, for forcing them off their villages, but this is our culture. You know, if you bring cultural relativism to its logical conclusion, you will justify and look the other way when any number of atrocities, human rights abuses, and discrimination occurs in the world. And that's bad. That's bad. Moral calculus doesn't magically start to change once the person is Mexican instead of American. Like, oh, these are Mexican homosexuals. Oh, we got to go to paragraph 20 and see how we're supposed to treat Mexican homosexuals according to cultural standards. Are we allowed to call them F-slurs? Actually, here's a question. Would it be respectful to the Qatari culture if I went to Qatar and started calling queer people the F-slur? Would that be a respectful way of me integrating with their culture? Would that me being woke? Is that woke, Dylan? Is while in Qatar, countries that are homophobic, you just call queers the F-slur? Come back to America, countries that are less homophobic, you hug them and we do drag queen story hour and say yippee? Yippee? See, once you cross a border, magically, gay people are like, it's like a barrel full of monkeys, you know? It's like shooting fish in a barrel all of a sudden. Now it's okay. It's ridiculous. A border does not dictate morality here. It's bad to be homophobic. It's bad to be homophobic in America. It's bad to be homophobic in Virginia, in Georgia, in Ukraine, in Chechnya, in Russia, in Saudi Arabia, in Poland, and in Qatar. It's bad to be homophobic anywhere. Homophobia is bad across the board, and you cannot use your culture as a shield from criticism.